Morning. The fourth and final day of the Republican National Convention is getting underway in Milwaukee. Doug Luzader's there. He's joining us this morning with a look ahead at what you can expect. And Doug, tonight is the grand finale with the speech from former President Donald Trump. What do you think we can expect?
Well, everything kind of builds to this. I mean, this is really the reason why we're here, is for the former president to accept his party's nomination. It will probably be a pretty lengthy speech. I think one of the questions here is going to be tone. We did hear in the wake of the assassination attempt last weekend that the former president, had rewritten this speech to emphasize this idea of national unity. There's very little question. There's a lot of Republican unity right now here in Milwaukee. I think the question is to what degree the president reaches out to the nation as a whole to talk about perhaps lowering the tone of political discourse in this country and how this campaign is going to move forward now.
So, Doug, last night, VP pick J.D. Vance gave his first speech. Tell us about some of the highlights.
Well, you know, Vance is a relative unknown to a lot of folks. I think a lot of people may be familiar with his book, Hillbilly Elegy, that was a big bestseller and eventually became a movie. But his time in the political spotlight has been relatively brief. He's just partway through his first term as a senator. And so he did literally introduce himself last night. Now, the strategy here from the Trump team appears to be to use Vance to help win some critically important states. And we're talking about the ones we always talk about in recent elections. A lot of Rust Belt states. We're talking about, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio. Those kinds of states where the Trump team is counting on Vance having a good connection with voters there, hoping to turn those states Republican come November.
The Biden campaign issued a pretty harsh review of J.D. Vance's speech. Can you kind of share a little bit of that with us and maybe some other critiques?
Well, I don't have their release with me right now, but I think the one word I think that they indicated was that he was essentially a rubber stamp for the former president, that kind of thing. So they have certainly been attacking him. And, I think there's a question about what this debate might look like between Vance and Kamala Harris, assuming it happens. There's supposed to be at least one vice presidential debate, but there's some question about the ticket, what this Democratic ticket is really going to look like. And President Biden is coming under more and more pressure to pass the torch. So if there is a VP debate, we don't know ultimately who Vance might be facing in that.
Yeah, it's going to be so interesting because we have these high-profile Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer saying, maybe Biden should drop out of the race. And I assume that is like the talk of the town at the RNC.
Well, the Pelosi factor is an interesting one to watch. And she's always very measured in how she speaks about these things. And we have not heard a public call from Nancy Pelosi for Biden to get out of the race. If that were to happen, she holds a fair amount of sway with Biden. So that could significantly change things. But it was interesting yesterday that Congressman Adam Schiff became a high-profile Democrat calling for Biden to get out, and he is very close with Pelosi. So the assumption here seems to be that he, at the very least, ran that by Pelosi before he called on the president to drop out of the race. Now, the Biden campaign says that he remains committed to the race and that he will prevail come November.
All right. Doug Luzader live in Milwaukee for us. Thank you, Doug. Enjoy your last day there in the Midwest.
Thank you.
Okay.